Hello from Republicans Overseas Television Channel. I'm Jonathan Constantine, head of the Hellenic chapter. I'm very happy to introduce Jim Gosart, our Vice President of Republicans Overseas. And the topic for today is our Republican National Committee conference, winter conference in Salt Lake, Utah. Hi, Jim. Tell us what happened.
Hi, Jonathan. Well, during the three-day meeting, there was a lot of interesting things that took place. I'll start with one of the more least controversial ones, and that is that in the background, since it's 2022 right now, and the national convention and the national election is 2 years away. Um, it's time to make a final selection on the location for the Republican National Convention that'll be held in, I believe it's going to be August of 24. So the final cities are going to be Milwaukee, Salt Lake City, and Nashville. And so, kind of, along the sidelines and of the happenings at the meeting, were representatives from those three cities. They were meeting with members, particularly from the 168 voting members. They had various receptions, various meetings, answering questions from from the general um, voting membership, as well as the convention committee, what's called the site selection committee. So that was going on. Um, but one of the most significant decisions was a decision taken that's going to result in the RNC withdrawing from what's called the Commission on Presidential Debates. Now, this has been viewed, I think, by many in sort of the media as a commission that that cannot be messed with. Well, what's actually been happening, however, is over the years, the Commission on Presidential Debates, which is supposed to be a bipartisan commission, has been very blatantly, time and time again, biased against the Republicans.
Yes, we saw
For
that during
example,
the 2020 election. It was awful.
well, and it turned out that some of the moderators were former campaign workers for major Democratic presidential candidates. So how can you have an official for, say, the Hillary Clinton campaign, and have that individual possibly claim that he's a nonpartisan or a bipartisan member and conducting a debate with very serious consequences? So now, again, I was mentioning the rules before. The way this played out is kind of interesting. So this discussion, first of all, the executive committee of the RNC during the summer formed a committee to look into this entire question. And the Commission on Presidential Debates was sent a letter by Ronna McDaniel outlining some of the concerns that the RNC has, and asked the Commission on Presidential Debates to reply with their answer on what our concerns are. The commission came back with a reply and basically said, we are a bipartisan commission. We have been, or a nonpartisan commission. We've been in place since 1998. Thank you for your questions, but we're going to change anything. The committee then took that reply, replied back to the commission with again a request that certain things be changed, and voted within the committee to withdraw from the Commission on Presidential Debates. That was a vote that the committee took. Now, interesting, these letters were made public, and the Wall Street Journal published a very interesting op-ed in support of the RNC position, stating that, look, the RNC is making some very reasonable requests here. For example, one of the requests by the RNC was that the commission schedule at least their first debate prior to the first opening of any early voting that would take place in any state. Now, that's a pretty reasonable request if you think about it. The American people should be able to see a presidential debate prior to the time at which any poll opens. And the commission even rejected that request. And so, the Wall Street Journal came out very much in favor of the position that the RNC was taking on this. So, what happened then just 2 days ago is the committee formalized their decision. Now, Solomon is a member of that committee. I was actually allowed to attend this committee hearing. The committee uh, finalized a decision to notify the Commission on Presidential Debates that we were withdrawing our support. Um, and then the next procedural step is that in the general session yesterday, the meeting of the RNC, the committee formally notified the executive committee of the RNC that it made that recommendation. The and that the committee had notified. Here's where it gets arcane. The committee had notified the RNC Rules Committee that it should prepare to modify its rules accordingly. So there's a whole series of things that take step here procedurally that are essential so that these decisions not only are well documented, but so that they can stand up to any court challenges. So there'll be one or more steps that will take place. The Rules Committee is now going to prepare their rules to reflect that the RNC is going to withdraw from the Commission on Presidential Debates. And the debate committee is preparing alternatives as to what, what will take the place of these scheduled debates that have been held every 4 years. So that's an entire new process. Probably some new media is going to be involved. Uh, who knows? It's really a wide open question at this point.
Yes,
But it's going to remain to be said. I'll just wrap it with this
yeah.
just one point. What it does do, though, is in terms of the Commission on Presidential Debates, it puts them in a very difficult position because they're reliant on major independent donors for their funding. Will those major independent donors fund that commission if the Republican Party has withdrawn? Probably not.
Well, you can't have a debate with just one person speaking. It's not a debate.
Right.
It's just
It's not a debate.
to the Democratic Party. Let them do it. It
Right.
became a farce anyway. If we can arrange debates. Jim, what else happened in Salt Lake City?
Yeah, another one is the Resolutions Committee. Um, the Resolutions Committee, when the RNC takes a position on a particular issue, the process for doing that is to submit a formal resolution, which is evaluated by the Resolutions Committee. The Resolutions Committee will then pass or reject that resolution, and once the Resolutions Committee recommends their findings to the general session, to the executive committee, the entire 168 voting members of the RNC will vote on those resolutions. They then become official policy of the RNC, and those resolutions are made public. Now, normally, I should say most often, the Resolutions Committee is kind of a sleepy committee. There's not a lot of things that happen in the Resolutions Committee that's at all controversial or of substance. But this time, two resolutions were passed that were very significant, very much in the news the last couple of days. Now, the first one was to censure Congresswoman Cheney and Congressman Kinzinger. The reason they were censured, and what this means is that the censure, and we had this discussion in the last last session. They can't deny them participation on congressional committees or anything like that. When you censure the censure of these two congresspeople, the net effect is going to be that the RNC will deny them funding, resources, data, support, etc., that the RNC might, during the normal course of an election cycle, otherwise grant to their campaigns. So they can still run for Congress. They can still run as a Republican, but they're going to do so without any support whatsoever from the RNC. And that's going to trickle down into state committees as well. But those two people were censured for their participation in the January 6th commission that's been compiled by convened by the Democrats in Congress. The reason this is so objectionable, and the reason for censuring, you might say, well, what's so bad about a congressman deciding to participate in a democratic process? Well, the problem is this: that process convened by the Democrats is not a bipartisan commission at all. It's a witch hunt, plain and simple. The Republicans were denied the ability to have any participation in the agenda of that commission. They were denied the ability to call witnesses. They were denied the ability to question the security and preparation of the Capitol, even though it was known that there could possibly be some trouble happening. FBI made these reports. So none of these things were allowed were the Republicans allowed to bring as part of the business of that commission, and therefore it was not by any way means a bipartisan commission, and therefore the RNC took what was a very difficult, controversial decision to censure two Congresspeople. Their future as congressional representatives, therefore, is very much in doubt.
Yes, truly the January Commission, as many of the things that the Democrats have done in Congress, not only bipartisan and witch hunts, they're an agenda completely unknown to the American people, unchecked, and that's the main problem. Sometimes we can even say that we're being too picky on the Republican side, but then again, we're for freedom, we're for transparency, and we prove it. Jim, what else happened in the Salt Lake City? What other resolutions were taken?
Yeah, there's one other one I want to mention, and this very much had Republicans overseas fingerprints all over it. So this is of interest to the RO people that are going to tune in. Solomon Yu crafted and got approved a very aggressive resolution condemning China for its handling of COVID-19, and also, and this is, I think, where a lot of the debate took place on this resolution. The resolution also sets forth a process, a potential legal process to extract reparations, to potentially seize assets from the Chinese Communist Party. And it's a fascinating. Once this resolution will become public, you can get it off the RNC website, but it really makes for a fascinating read. It's a now these resolutions are not legally binding, but the process set forth in this resolution describes a legal process whereby this could be binding. That's what's so interesting about it. And once again, now Solomon, our chairman of Republicans overseas, and also National Committee man for the state of Oregon, sponsored the resolution. He's the one that put it through. But Republicans overseas president for France, Randy Yalos, was its principal author. And if you dig into the resolution, what Randy came up with in terms of the enforcement mechanism, he made very skillful use, excuse me, I'm going to have to look back at my notes at it here. He made very skillful use of the Foreign Sovereign, here it is, the Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act.
Yes, the Foreign
which
Sovereign, we've
normally
talked about that very often. And it was really a great piece of work by Randy. But the question is, will our Republican politicians actually come forth and ask from the Senate and the Congress and the state authorities to implement this as law? Will they hide?
It remains to be seen.
Because
it remains to be seen, I think.
As we've said on previous shows, the RNC is not fully capable by law of making these politicians, and we're talking about people that many times have actual economic ties with China, and they call themselves the Republicans.
Losing you.
The big question is, we call them rhinos. The big question is, can we force these people to carry out the resolution by the RNC and bring these decisions to become the law of the land?
Well, it's a good point, and of course, the RNC can't force any congressman to bring this forth in terms of proposed legislation. But what it does do is it provides a template whereby they could. Certainly, you can take this resolution and put it into legislation. That's very easy to do. And I think another point that comes up, the Republican Party, right or wrong, has a very big tent, a very wide tent in terms of ideologically what's accepted in the party. But I will say this: what was clear in the meeting this week is that, if you will, the America First. Um, uh, I don't want to call it a faction, but the America First sort of leaning members of the RNC um, are the ones that are getting things done in decisions like these two resolutions. And I think that's reflective of where the RNC stands today. The RNC is leaning in that direction, and I personally I think that's a very good thing. And so to produce a resolution like this that really provides a checklist and a template and at least a legal theory. Randy and Solomon did tremendous work on this. It provides Congress with the ability to very simply craft this into legislation, and should they choose to do so. So we got to sit, I got to wait and see what happens.
Okay, Jim, thank you very much for. Was there anything else that you want to wrap up that happened in Salt Lake?
I think that no, I think those are really the key decisions. I think apart from that, I could tell you that the members are really bullish on the upcoming congressional elections. The state parties are feeling very, very confident. States that are swing states, states that are modestly blue, are feeling more optimistic than ever. The state parties are well organized, they're fired up, they're energized, and I think you go now and you head into the fall and into some of the primaries are going to be happening soon, and you head into the fall election. I can tell you the Republican Party is fired up. They're raising resources, they're putting resources on the ground, and they're very, very optimistic about our chances in 2022. And I think for people tuning into this, I would urge to do what you can. Make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure you know how to register to vote in the U.S. and let your voice be heard through your vote.
Thank you, Jim. And I would just like to say in closing that the 2022 midterms and the 2024 presidential elections will really be judged on the integrity of the elections. Because we saw in the 2020 there was a lot of shenanigans. And my last question before you wrap up, what do you hear from the RNC in terms of protecting the integrity of our 2022 midterm elections? Because people are very, very concerned. We don't want to see what happened in 2020 with the election steal.
For sure. It's a term I heard being used across the committee sessions and the open session more than ever is election integrity. Since the last at the last RNC summer meeting, this goes back to 2021. There had been a commission on election integrity convened by the executive committee of the RNC. That committee did a tremendous job laying out their recommendations on what actions the RNC should take regarding election integrity. That report was presented to probably, and I believe it's publicly available if you Google it up. That report presented about 30 pages of findings, and those findings then have been rolling out. There are dozens of lawsuits taking place right now. The estimate I heard is it's in between 40 and 50 that where the RNC is involved in either sponsoring or supporting those election integrity lawsuits. and it's following, in many cases, a template laid out by the Election Integrity Commission. But this is a battle being fought in virtually every state. It is being countered by the Democrats at every single lawsuit. But overwhelmingly, the cases are swinging in our favor.
Yes, I know that.
It-
And sorry to interrupt you. To quote Stalin, I don't care who votes for me. I want to know who counts the votes. And when the votes are counted by people funded by leftist oligarchs, things get rough.
for sure.
A closing
And
statement,
but
Jim?
what I can, well, I think the closing statement, your point on election integrity is critical. For one, you're going to see this. This is not something that's going to go away. I think what I'm convinced is that the RNC and the Republican Party is committed to election integrity as a continuous process in the courts and in the court of public opinion. That's a battle that's going to be fought over and over again. But again, I would come back and say that the RNC and the Republican Party is extremely optimistic right now, heading into what is an absolutely crucial election. We have got to take back the House and the Senate if we're going to save our country.
And make sure the dead people and illegal immigrant votes aren't counted. Thank you very much, Jim. There was another TV show, Republicans Overseas TV. We'll see you next time. Till then, God be with you.
Thank you, Jonathan.